Have you undertaken any investigations of judges, the judiciary?
No, well, it's a difficult thing because judges in Russia, well, they are just as usual a tool for different business conflicts as law enforcement, as secret services. Unfortunately, judges in Russia are absolutely dependent. They can't be considered to be independent from the top figures in the state, and they will act according to, well, to this or that political wins in the state. They will never act independently. Or there are a lot of cases when judges are simply taking bribes. And you know, when two oligarchs from aluminium sphere, they came, Russian oligarchs, they came to United States courts trying to find justice here. Each of them brought different decisions of Russian courts, just supporting their point of view of the situation. And the United States judge looked at it and said, sorry, go to your country and decide your question, because I can't understand. You have different decisions, and it is all well, state decisions, the decisions of the state courts. I can't go too deep into these Russian details. I don't understand everything in this country, so go back and find the opportunity to search for justice in your country. London courts, in London, in Great Britain, lawyers felt themselves quite good in this situation, because it is a kind of a justice market for Russian big businessmen, and they spend a lot of money for these court processes. Sometimes because of court processes in London, we get some exclusive information and frightening information about the involvement of this or that Russian officials, or the wives of Russian officials into some commercial activity and big commercial activity. It's about judges. Judges in Russia are just a tool.
But if you start an investigation of any particular judge?
No, we never looked into any particular judge, because we understand that it's not the top figure in taking the decisions. They're dependent. They are just the tool in some commercial games or in some political games. Unfortunately, we try to look at the top of the problem to understand who is the real resident behind this or that situation, who gains from this or that case, whose business is developing because of this or that decisions.
I actually have two questions. I wonder, first of all, whether you, since this is a panel on betting on business, whether there are certain sectors of business that you would consider to be safer to invest in as a foreigner than others. And that sort of leads me to my second question, which is, and I think that would be useful for people to hear. And my second question is, I wonder whether all this is not, the problems that the gentleman there mentioned, whether this has not all arisen as a result of miscommunication. Russia went through rapid privatization, gangster capitalism, where essentially crooks took control of major industries on borrowed money, pretended to be successful businessmen, very often siphoned off cash into offshore companies, became billionaires without really investing anything in the companies that they owned, and certainly not in the communities in which their business is operated. And in this age of gangster capitalism, I think that was Chrystia Freeland's term, Russian leaders realized that they had gone overboard with privatization, and that they started to pull everything back. And in effect, we're having a reverse privatization taking place. And more, I wonder whether it's not the foreign investor that's really at fault here for not realizing that we're dealing with a form of corporatism, This is a situation that seems very similar to Mussolini's Italy before World War II, where you have monopoly companies that are driven, allowed to be monopolists, and are driven by state interests. And the minute that you cross the interests of the state, you are removed. The companies operate as subsidiaries, as servants, if you will, of the state. So I wonder whether you could address those questions, please.
Safe businesses in Russia. Well, I don't think that any spheres are more safe than others. I suppose that the most safe businesses for foreign investors, of course, is this state-controlled, big state-controlled companies. If they are just not major investors there, if they just put their money, invest their money in these companies and waiting for what will happen, then they never play any active part in this process, as, for example, Hermitage Management tried to do. The representative of Hermitage Management tried to become the independent director of Gazprom. It's a different sphere.
I'm sorry, question.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong as well. Before Gazprom shares were available to foreigners, they were gray shares. Offshore companies were set up specifically, they were owned by Russian entities, and they were specifically designed to own Gazprom shares.
You mean Boris Fyodorov's schemes?
Yes, well,
Those,
and other people's schemes as well. And most early investors invested in those shares, not, in other words, subverting what the government was trying to do.